Caregiver stress is an issue that early on was identified as the primary cause of elder abuse. So when I started in the field back in the 1990s, much of the literature suggested that caregiver stress was the primary cause of elder abuse. But since then, more recent research has taken a look at this issue and has really found that caregiver stress is not the primary cause of elder abuse. And what we've learned, both through the research and talking to folks in the field about their experience, is one, a number of older adults who are abused don't have care providers. The person that's harming them is, in fact, an intimate partner who's been with them for a very long time, or an adult child or grandchild or family member who's actually economically or emotionally dependent on the older adult rather than vice versa. So you don't have caregiver stress if there's no caregiving relationship. But even in cases where you have a caregiving relationship, first, what we would acknowledge is that caregiving can be extremely stressful, and caregivers around the country do an amazing job with limited resources of providing care and dealing with difficult situations. But most caregivers are not abusive. Most caregivers, even when times are difficult or stressful, find ways to deal with the stress other than taking it out on the older adult or a person with disabilities that they're working with. Sometimes we see cases of what has been called caregiver distress, meaning that the harm that happens is more to the caregiver. So people overeat, they abuse substances, they don't exercise, they don't get out, they don't take care of themselves, but they don't harm the person that they're providing care to. In some cases, a caregiver will lash out physically or emotionally, and that is caregiver stress that's led to abuse, but most often, again, those folks are horrified by what they've done. They apologize for their behavior. They pick up the phone and they call and they get as much help as they can so that they can be safe and that the person that they're caring for can be safe. What happened with the caregiver stress theory being the primary cause of elder abuse is early on some researchers asked caregivers why they might be harming the older adult that they were caring for. And what they heard from these caregivers was that the person was difficult to care for, they were doing the best they can, they needed more help, but if people could understand the challenges that they were having, they would be much more sympathetic. And what these researchers ended up missing was that abusers minimize their behavior, they justify their behavior, they blame the victim. So instead of taking that analysis into thought as they were writing about their research, they promoted this notion that caregiver stress could be a primary cause of elder abuse.